Hear, O Israel, Yah, O our Elohim, Yah, O is one. See now that I myself am He. There is no God besides me. I put to death and I bring to life, and no one can deliver out of my hand. Yah, O is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of Adam that he should repent. Has he said, and shall he not do it? Or has he spoken, and shall he not make it good? Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Yah and guard his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
To understand where it came from, we have to go back to the 11th century. At that time, the church was sending thousands of men as crusaders to recapture the Holy Land, and in particular Jerusalem, which had fallen into Muslim hands. Now, who were these men, these crusaders? They came from all walks of life. The one thing they had in common was their belief in the Catholic teachings. However, when these men traveled to the Middle East, they were suddenly exposed to many different beliefs and spiritual teachings that they had never heard before. These teachings came from Judaic and Islam mysticism, they came from Egypt, from Greece, and even from faraway places like India. They also began to hear different interpretations of familiar biblical texts, things they had never heard in their church. One particular passage stood out. It was a story of the snake tempting Eve with the apple. The Catholic Church had taught them that the snake was Lucifer or Satan, who deceived Eve by promising that if she would eat from the forbidden tree, she would become like God. Suddenly these men were introduced to a very different interpretation. They heard that Lucifer was not evil or Satan, but the God who wanted to save and educate mankind. In truth, they called him the Lightbringer, the real God, and that Yahweh, or Adonai in the Bible, was in actuality the devil, the suppressor of mankind, because he didn't want Eve and Adam to know their true identity. This teaching became the famous Luciferian doctrine. Now, when these men returned home from the Holy Land, they continued talking about these new ideas and interpretations. But they knew they could only do so under strictest secrecy, as the church would torture and kill anybody who would question or challenge their teachings and authority. This eventually led to the birth of many secret societies, most famously the Templars, the Rosicrucian, and the various Masonic orders. These very mixed teachings from many different occult traditions were secretly studied, eventually wrapped in rituals, and protected by gruesome and blood-curdling oaths that the members had to swear to ensure secrecy. But everything changed in the year 1888 when the founder of the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, made most of these teachings public in her famous book, The Secret Doctrine. Central to Madame Blavatsky's teaching was the Luciferian doctrine. The first edition of her book stated that Lucifer is the only God for our planet. Another famous person was Alice Bailey, who founded the Lucifer Publication Company in 1922. And then there was the well-known science fiction writer H.G. Wells, who also published a book called The New World Order in 1940. With this book, he promoted a world government and a secular world religion.
I'll read this again. To the Kabbalists, they say Yahweh reversed. Okay? So that's their God. They turn everything upside down. To the outside world, they say Yahweh. To the inner world, it means what? Satan. So they can preach in the name of Jesus Christ the most eloquent sermons, and you wouldn't know that they're preaching about Lucifer.
Did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Oh,
Amen.
God bless you,
Amen.
brother.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light.
You wouldn't know. Now, the name of Yahweh reversed. Now, I was in Israel the other day, and I was on the track of something very important, and I took many photographs, and a man came up to me and he flashed something at me. Very strange. There was another evangelist right next to me, and he flashed something and he says, "Look, Allah is your God upside down."
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light.
And he walked away, and I thought he was nuts. I read the statement, and I went to a Hebrew scholar, and I said, "Will you check this out for me?" And he battled, and he battled, and he battled, and he battled. When the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamic dynamo of living power, he has learned the mastery of his craft. The seething energy of Lucifer are in his hands. Manly Palmer Hall, high Masonic form. The devil is now called darkness by the church, whereas in the Bible he's called the Son of God, Lucifer, son of the morning.
Welcome to the Antichrist Revealed. I am Rav Shaul. This is a presentation of SabbathCovenant.com. Today I'm going to be speaking from my book, The Antichrist Revealed. You can see the cover of the book there on the left. I'm going to be releasing this book for free, the PDF version, to go along with this video teaching. That's where the full presentation can be found, 500 pages of proof that Jesus Horus Krishna, better known today as Jesus H. Christ, is the prophesied Antichrist, or false image of the true Messiah.
The devil is now called darkness by the church, whereas in the Bible he's called the Son of God, Lucifer, son of the morning.
When the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands. Is there any direct evidence from Masonic literature that they would provide information or instruction to conjure Satan or his demons? This book is The Builders, who was written by Joseph Fort Newton in 1914. It's the classic which today is often presented to newly raised Master Masons. The bibliography contains references to most of the major books and authors which reveal the hidden meanings behind Masonry. This is page 57. It's a page in the chapter on the secret doctrine. It says, "Perhaps the greatest student in this field of esoteric teaching and method, certainly the greatest now living, is Arthur Edward Waite, to whom it is a pleasure to pay tribute." Waite, who until his death in 1945 was considered to be a great student of the secret doctrine, wrote this Masonic encyclopedia, a new encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Waite also wrote the Book of Black Magic. On page 244 through 248 of the Book of Black Magic, we find detailed instructions on how to conjure Lucifer. This book was published by the authority of the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree. It has a bibliography listing selected references in the back. It's known as a Bridge to Light. Here's the title page. And we can see down at the bottom that it was, in fact, written with the authorization of the Supreme Council. Here's the selected references, which are found on page 329 of A Bridge to Light. And we notice down at the bottom that they recommend Manly Palmer Hall's 1928 Secret Teachings of All Ages, an encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy is the other title. This is the full page of the chapter heading on ceremonial magic and sorcery in Hall's book. I'm going to do a close-up of the left-hand top of the page. Hall writes, "Ceremonial magic is the ancient art of invoking and controlling spirits by a scientific application of certain formula." Down below he writes, "While the elaborate ceremonial magic of antiquity was not necessarily evil," well, believe me, what Hall is talking about here is conjuring demons, and it is extremely evil. modus operandi for the invocation of spirits. This is a rather nice way to say the methods to be used to conjure demons. Here is a drawing from the book showing a magician invoking a demon. Notice that he's standing in a magic circle, and on the upper left-hand corner we've got Baphomet, the goat of Mendez. How would you go about controlling a demon once it was invoked? Well, the Secret Teachings of All Ages provides an example pact, which is found on this page, CIV. It reads, "At last a pact is agreed upon." It may read as follows: "I hereby promise the great spirit Lucifuge, prince of demons, that each year I will bring unto him a human soul to do with as it may please him, and in return Lucifuge promises to bestow upon me the treasures of the earth and fulfill my every desire for the length of my natural life. If I fail to bring to him each year the offering specified above, then my own soul shall be forfeit to him." And it's signed, the Inficant signs the pact with his own blood. This is the lost keys of Freemasonry. On page 57, Hall writes, "The Master Mason, if he be truly a master, is in communication with the unseen powers that move the destinies of life." If he be truly a master, is in communication with the unseen powers that move the destinies of life.
Darkened world today, but he's waiting for you and me to say, oh, that spoken word is the key. Speak that thing, decree that thing, and it shall come to pass. Whatever it is in your life that you're decreeing right now, you've got to say it, you've got to speak it, you've got to decree it. You decree the thing, you pay your vow, and then he brings it to pass. It's in the word.
To put it carefully, most of these people followed a not very mainstream religion. So you have Catholics, Protestants, all sorts of religions. These people, most of them were Luciferians. And then you can say religion is a fairy tale, God doesn't exist, none of that is real. Well, for these people, it is truth and reality. And they served something immaterial, what they call Lucifer. And I also was in contact with those circles, only I laughed at it because to me they were just clients. So I went to places called churches of Satan. So now we are talking about Satanism? Yes. So I visited these churches just as a visitor, dropped by. And then they were doing their holy mass with naked women and liquor and stuff. And it just amused me. I didn't believe in any of this stuff and was far from convinced if any of this was real. It was just a spectacle. Yes, in my opinion, the darkness and evil is within the people themselves. I didn't make the connection yet. So I was a guest in those circles, and it amused me greatly to see all those naked women and the other things. It was the good life. But then at some point I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad. That was the breaking point. Children. You were asked to do that? Yes, and I couldn't do that. Would you like to stop for a moment, by the way? No. And then I started to slowly break down. I lived through quite a lot as a child myself, and this really touched me deeply. Everything changed. But that is the world I found myself in. And then I started to refuse assignments within my job. I could no longer do it, which made me a threat. For them, of course. I was no longer capable of functioning optimally. My performance started to shake, and I had to refuse tasks. I had not participated. The purpose of the whole thing, eventually, in that world, is that they have everybody in their pocket. You need to be susceptible to blackmail. And blackmailing me proved to be very hard if I look back on it. They wanted to do that through those children. And that broke me, is that you are not telling me something new, what they also do in politics. If you Google this, you'll find enough worldwide witness accounts to know this isn't a Walt Disney fairy tale.
Walt Disney verhaaltjes. Het is helaas.
Unfortunately, the truth is that worldwide they have been doing this for thousands of years. I once studied theology, and even in the Bible you find references to these practices with Israelites, including the sacrificing of children. So this is pertinent. All this made me believe, because I realized there was more to life than meets the eye. There is a whole invisible world. It is real. You really do talk about a dark force.
Near the day of the great purification, there will be cobwebs spun back and forth in the sky, a Hopi prophecy. And it says, though this is a demonic prophecy, it is another connection that can be drawn between the chemtrails and the demons. Just like Crowley, who contacted Lamb through the use of drugs. What is the great day of purification the demons speak of? It is their dream when the New World Order is in place and all the Christians are exterminated or reprogrammed to worship Lucifer or Satan. The following quote makes their goals very clear. No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will make a Luciferian initiation. David Spangler, Director of Planetary Initiative, United Nations.
Proof that Jesus Horus Krishna, better known today as Jesus H. Christ, is the prophesied Antichrist or false image of the true Messiah.
In a letter dated 22 January 1870, Mazzini wrote to Pike. Now, Albert Pike is this high Mason who wrote the manual, if you like, of Scottish Freemasonry. He said the following: we must allow all of the federations to continue just as they are. It must appear as things are as they were in the beginning, with their systems, their central authorities, and diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same right, organized as they are at present, but we must create a super right, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree, whom we shall select. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledged to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme right, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown. Now, Albert Pike wrote a letter to Mazzini, and that was dated August 15, 1871, in which he propagated that there should be a world order, a one order where all nations are under the control of one central organization. And in order to achieve this, they planned, and there are numerous quotes for this, so I've put a number on the screen because some will say, I don't trust this, I don't trust that, I don't trust the other. Here are references down there, there are references up there, there will be references in other slides, so it comes from different sources. He said, and this was, by the way, on display in the British Museum, and could be seen there until it was taken away. The First World War, to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia, protector of orthodoxy, and bring about an atheistic communistic state. Did that happen? Yes. Now that was written long before this event. long before this event. This was written in 1871. This war broke out in 1914. The Second World War, that's also written long before the event, to originate between Great Britain and Germany, to strengthen communism as antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture, and bring about a Zionist state in Israel. Did it achieve this objective? Yes. In fact, after this war, Israel, in its present form, was reinstated under the protection of Britain. And then, interestingly enough, a Third World War, a Middle Eastern war involving Judaism and Islam and spreading internationally. That's fascinating. Is that on the cards, or what do you think?
I am Lucifer.
It only sounds like we are on track. Well, here's another quote, just in case people don't like that quote. Mazzini with Pike developed a plan for 3 world wars so that eventually every nation would be willing to surrender its national sovereignty to a world government. The first war was to end the Tsarist regime in Russia, the second to allow the Soviet Union to control Europe, the Third World War was to be in the Middle East between Muslim and Jews and would result in Armageddon. Interesting. Now, how were they going to do it? Let's read what Albert Pike wrote about these wars and how they were going to be unleashed. He wrote, quote, "We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist," so the destroyer and the atheist, "and we will provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. Origin of savagery and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the minority of revolutionaries will exterminate these destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, will receive the pure light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. The destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." Wow, what a clever plan. So you rub the two systems which you create up against the other. You create atheism as an antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture. You have these two clash until they rub each other up, and then out of that you will get a new world order where you have a new religion which is far more esoteric and actually honors Satan. Isn't that a rather clever plan? Well, it's very successful.
Proof that Jesus Horus Krishna, better known today as Jesus H. Christ, is the prophesied Antichrist, or false image of the true Messiah.
They turn it upside down. I'm not making this up. He's known as the supreme architect of the universe. This is all quotes. Who has promised that we shall never, never die. This is a Masonic source which blows them out of the water. What do they call their deity? The supreme architect of the universe. But he's the one who said you will never, never die. Which one said that? The serpent said it. So the poor Masons in the lower ranks don't know these things. Here's another one from Morals and Dogma, just to make sure that you see that I'm not making this up. The deity of the Old Testament is everywhere represented as the direct author of evil. I hereby promise to Lucifer, my soul, the secret teaching of all ages, mainly Palmer Hall. And who is then allowed to know the truth about Masonry? Well, we must create a super right which remains unknown. Only some may know these things and others not. Now, when you become a Shriner, that means when you have reached the 32nd degree of Freemasonry, you qualify after 6 months to become a Shriner. Now, if you were a Christian, you swore allegiance on the Bible. But when you become a Shriner, you swear allegiance to Allah. With the Quran on the altar, we sealed our solemn oath in the name of Allah, the God of Arab, Muslim, Mohammedan, the God of our fathers. Wow, that's interesting. The Maslah, here is one of their phases. Now we understand something. The one is a front organization for a front organization, but the one who receives worship is Rome, not Islam. Islam is subservient to Rome without anyone knowing it. So let's repeat this one. The true name of Satan, the Kabbalists say, is Yahweh reversed. And here it is. There's the name of God, Yahweh, as it is in Hebrew. If you carefully reverse it, each one, and turn it upside down, in reverse writing you have that. Upside down you have that. You press it together, you have that. And that spells Allah in Arabic. Wow. That's fascinating stuff. So that man who came to me there and flashed this at me and disappeared, was he right? That's scary. That's scary.
Do not worship any other God, for the Almighty, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim. For Yahweh, your power is a consuming fire, a jealous Elohim. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto demonic spirits, not to Yah, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Elohim is jealous and revenges. Yahweh revenges and is furious. Yahweh will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. Yahweh is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. Yahweh has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet.